my organization is responsible for producing, transmitting, transporting, and distributing electricity to about 91% of the households of Nepal, having access to about 95% geographically. There are 6,743 wards, or small units of governance, and out of them, only 300 wards are now out of access. So we have the access to electricity. Now, how can we contribute towards greening already the green energy? I have proposed, and we are working towards that with a fellow institution, Alternative Energy Promotion Center. And this would, at first, sound maybe strange coming from the mouth of a utility chief, that we are proposing to increase the use of biomass, but efficient biomass in the rural households. What I'm trying to drive at is, 2024 energy survey has showed that 80% of our energy use is biomass, and only about 4% is from electricity. But interesting is that in household cooking, about more than 50% is firewood, and more than 44% is LPG, liquid is petrol gas. So this is where, I thought we can make a different proposition. And what we are trying to do is there's a clear direction towards electric cooking, but the electric cooking, it occurs in the morning and evening for about 1 hour in an average. Individually, it may be 2 hours or 3 hours, but in an average, it's 1 hour peak in the morning and 1 hour peak in the evening, and that causes demand in the electric infrastructure. I have to build generation capacity, build transmission capacity, and build distribution capacity to that tune. Double of it, but to be used only 2 hours a day. So instead of, and that is caused by, if it is caused by electric cooking, then I should look for alternative. So that's where I was brought into this proposition, where we provide electricity to all these 95% access, where we have access to pellet and briquette making machines. So this pellets and briquettes, also when burning, they can use some fan electricity, very minimal. So that way, it converts the firewood, traditional firewood, into very efficient pellets. And out of 6,743 wards, we have more than 4,000 which are rural. And so this is the first step where we can really change, bring a change. And the next thing is the electric transport that you have mentioned. Yes, we are right now leading in terms of percentage of new vehicles that are electric. But we should also keep in mind that the roads that are already plying in the road will not come out of the road for some time to come. And almost 100% of the cargo trucks and large buses are still petrol. So the possibility of converting them into electric is something that we are trying to explore. But there are regulatory obstacles, as already Dr. Lorange mentioned. We have been trying to do this since 20 years. And we haven't found a procedure or regulation to allow conversion of electric vehicles. Keeping that note aside, what we are trying to do in NEA is promoting electric vehicles by adopting the electric vehicles first, walk the talk, as you say. So we have a lot of electric vehicles in our organization, but that just is a very small part of the whole transport scenario. So what we do is install charging stations all over the country. So we have about 62. In the beginning, we had them, big charging stations. And now we are promoting the private charging stations. There are more than 700 charging stations. We provide transformer and high voltage, medium voltage, 11 kV link up to the charging station and provide subsidized cheap electricity to those charging stations. That's the way we promote electric transport. There's still a lot of things to do in the electric transport. These vehicles that we have mentioned are all electric luxury comfort vehicles. They provide good numbers, but in terms of carbon emission, they don't contribute much because they ply so many kilometers in the road per day. So it would only change when the public vehicles and the cargo vehicles are converted to electric. And the economics is still not so favorable when we buy new vehicles there. So for Nepal, country like Nepal, where we don't have any manufacturing base, it makes sense to allow conversions and remove all those regulatory hurdles and plead from this platform again to all those regulators and lawmakers that please make it possible so that we can convert those vehicles into electric or hybrid. So that will bring the emissions down quickly. And the third thing that was mentioned and that we are taking into priority is pump storage projects. That again, of course, I think is quite obvious to all that with the proliferation of solar power, you need energy storage. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Factories won't stop after sunset. They won't stop working. They need power. Households need power in the evening. So you need battery storage or pump storage. Nepal has a mountainous background. We are so naturally endowed with high mountains that we can have very lucrative pump storage projects. At the top and bottom, we can make some ponds. And so NEA, Nepal Electricity, has already taken a step to us that we have identified 164 pump storage projects totaling about 60,000 megawatt, and out of which 52 projects were taken out for further study and ranked. Already we have taken 3 licenses, Kulikhan Cisneri 100 megawatt, 400 megawatt hour, Hulingtar pump station 500 megawatt, 2000 megawatt hour, and Sharpuda pump station 32 megawatt, 1700 megawatt hour. So these projects are being studied in detail, and we are trying to fast track it. And again, in pump storage, there's some regulatory hurdle again. Pump storage projects are required to take license, whereas we are not using this natural resource. We are charging and recharging, charging and discharging. So there should not be any royalties, fees for this, but they are treated as equal with the other projects, and that is hindering pump storage project. So if that could be removed, we can push pump storage project. And pump storage project, it helps the solar, and it also helps our energy balance in the supply side, and supports the ROR, proliferation. The energy mix we have is 40 to 45% ROR, run-of-river projects. So that doesn't have any storage. And 30%, about 30% is pumped, peaking run-of-river projects. So that can be peaked or stored only during winter season. Wet season is all 24 hours, same capacity, and only 20-25% reservoir projects. That's the energy mix. So when we have so much of a run-of-river project, it creates problem to us. We have surplus during the wet season, and it's not constant surplus again that we can sell in India. It's like it's spill energy type of, for 18 hours we have spill, and then 6 hours we can't. We need to have them. So to balance that and to make it flat and make that energy, the same electricity, but we want to make it good quality and sell it to India. So for that also we need pump storage project. So pump storage projects help it flatten the supply. And finally, one point I just want to mention here is the micro hydros that we built when our network was not so wide-reaching in Nepal. We built micro hydros in all those rural households, more than 2,000 micros, and more than 2,000 groups of heroes in those local villages. So now they have been set aside because our network has reached there. So that's a tragedy for a local tragedy story. So what we are trying to do is interconnect those microhydros to our grid network, make it possible, improve some of the infrastructures that might be required to make them connected to the grid. That will enable the local economy, local sustainability, and also help our grid as a local resilience from nature or other disturbances. So, and the final is, in the transmission lines are causing, facing a lot of local resistance, because everybody says not in my backyard. They want the transmission line, but not in my backyard. So how do we promote that? So what we are proposing is that right on the right of way, say, please, you can install solar panels. We will go and take it at your doorstep at the highest price that is possible. And we'll also facilitate the banking, we'll also facilitate all other mechanisms, and your land under the right of way, which would normally be unused, would now be used for solar. So we are now getting the win-win situation. So these are a few steps that we are adopting to green the already green energy. We are 100% green. Of course, we import about 20% energy in the winter, which is coal from India. Indian energy is a little bit dirty, so to say. But we are again exporting the same amount, which is 100% green. So altogether, we can claim that we are net zero.